Hello, everyone. Welcome back to an episode of Just Say Guay. I'm your host, George Guay. Today I'm joined by Mike Eruzione, who was the captain of the United States Olympic team for the Miracle on Ice back in 1980. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so when I mentioned that to you, a lot of time has passed. I know that you have the jersey behind you. What does it mean to you today, knowing that you're a part of that team, you had a big leadership role, and it still remains as the greatest upset in sports history and has meant so much to the hockey world?
Well, I think my teammates and I take great pride in what we accomplished, what it meant clearly to us as a team, but what we found out later it meant to a nation. There aren't that many sporting events that touch the lives of so many people in the country like ours did, and we didn't know it. We were just playing the game. But again, I just think it's a great deal of pride, the joy that we brought to so many people. Even 43 years later, people come up to me and I tell they'll say, "I remember where I was when we won," and I always say, I didn't know you were on the team, but it was something that was pretty special. And again, I think we take great pride and joy in knowing about that.
Definitely, that's a well put answer, and that's what I'm fascinated by. It's a sporting event that's going to live on forever and still has an impact, like it just happened. So we got to tell the story of how you got there. So what was it like growing up in Winthrop, Massachusetts? You had a great hockey culture with the Bruins. You had BU and BC. You went to BU. What was it like just being a part of that?
Well, first of all, growing up in Winthrop, where I still live, I live 3 houses from the house I grew up in. My daughter lives down the street. My son bought the house directly behind me. So the Winthrop is a very important part of my life. But probably a lot of people don't know this, that Winthrop didn't have hockey when I was a kid. We didn't have a program at all. We didn't have a rink. Um, I played most of my hockey up until I was about 11 or 12 in Revere. I played for the Revere youth hockey team because Winthrop didn't have one. And then Winthrop started a program. Uh, I learned to skate outdoors on the tennis courts down the street from where I lived. And, Winthrop was a hockey town when I kind of started as a kid. A lot of people, they'd skate on the lake or the pond or whatever, but there was no program. But since 1980, I shouldn't say that, since my senior year in high school, which was 1972, Winthrop's developed a really good hockey culture in the community, a really good hockey town. My grandkids play at the rink at the Mike Eruzione Center, which is even crazier. But our high school program's been very successful. And, I'd like to say Winthrop is really a kind of a hockey community and a hockey town. But growing up here, the culture of the community, the friends that I have, I played football, I played baseball. I probably played more baseball than hockey. So growing up in a small community was a big part of, I think, the success that I've had. My family is close. We've always been close. I grew up in a 3-family house with all my cousins and aunts and uncles, and a great family atmosphere. So I think Winthrop was a big part of the success that I've had, not so much even as an athlete, but I think as a person.
Yeah, it sounds like such a great place to grow up and let alone play hockey. And it's so great that it worked out for you. And like you said, it must be so cool to have a hockey center named after you and just to be able to inspire people today. And so something that was interesting I learned about you in terms of your hockey journey before Lake Placid is that this was not your first time putting on the USA jersey. You had prior experience to that. And I was just wondering, in terms of making the team for Lake Placid, how much did having that experience in a USA jersey help? Because it can be a lot for the first time.
I played in 2 world championships. And I've said this many times over the years, other than serving in our military, I think the greatest thing you can do is put on a USA jersey to represent your country in a sporting event, whether it's hockey, summer Olympics, Winter Olympics, World Championships that we always have every year for different sports. It's so different. It's not, you're not from Boston anymore. You're not from Winthrop. You're not from Michigan or California. You're from the United States. And I think when you put that jersey on, it's a responsibility that you feel you have to go out and perform to your best and try to be and do the best you can do because you represent so many people. And I think that's what's special about that jersey and wearing that jersey. And like I say, I think the first time you put it on, you're kind of like, wow, look what I'm doing. Look who I'm representing. And then to do it for a third time in the Olympic Games, and obviously the Olympic Games to me, are a lot bigger than the World Championships. More visibility, more people watching. So I think that's a little more special than playing in a World Championship game. But like I said, anytime you can put a USA jersey on is pretty special.
Yeah, well put answer. And I know that a lot of people would agree with that. And I've seen how much it means to so many hockey players throughout the years. A lot of USA national team development program players have been on the show, and they mention what it means to put on every day. But when the time ends and they have to go to college, they want to play in the World Juniors and put that jersey on again because, like you said, it's such a great honor and what you can achieve when you play in those games. So going into Lake Placid, what was it like for you guys as a team? Just going in because of the fact that no gold medal since 1960, but there was a lot going on in the world at the time. In Iran, the Soviets were going into Afghanistan. Just crazy time to be playing hockey. What was it like for you guys?
Well, it was a hockey tournament, a big hockey tournament, I should say. Anytime you're in the Olympic Games, it's a big tournament. So I think for a team, that was our mindset, was just to go in and have fun and play well, and whatever happens is going to happen. We never looked at it from a political standpoint. We knew the country was in a kind of a crazy situation, similar to what we're dealing with, I think, today. But for us, it was a hockey game and a hockey tournament. We didn't know. It was going to become what it became. We didn't know it until the Olympics were ended. And we went to Washington, to the White House. The president invited the Olympians to the White House. And then we realized that, boy, this thing was pretty big. We knew it was big in Lake Placid, but no clue if the world was watching the way they were. So for us, again, going back to the beginning, it was a tournament we were excited about playing in, marching in the opening ceremonies, being an Olympic athlete, having the Olympic Games in your own country was an incredible honor. And that's how we kind of approached it. Let's go out and play. Let's see what happens. And as it turned out, it was a pretty amazing event. But like I said earlier, our intention was to try to play the best we could, and whatever was going to happen was going to happen. And we obviously played really well and won the whole thing.
Yeah, for sure, played really well, and it's amazing how you guys were able to focus. And I think that's the great thing about sports at times. There can be a lot going on in your personal life or in the world, and it kind of can still bring us together, and to be able to compete on the world stage must have been awesome for you guys. So just want to talk about the confidence in Coach Herb Brooks going into the tournament. You guys get the best coach for the job. He won the 1979 national championship at the University of Minnesota, but at the time he brought in 12 guys from Minnesota on the team, 9 of them from his own school. I mean, what's it like knowing that you guys definitely got the right coach, but you're looking, hey, maybe a couple of guys from BU or BC could have made the roster, but it's not my.
Well, I don't know about BC. You know what? It was a hockey team that was put together by Herb and a committee of Herb. It was what it was. I mean, it was great to play with Jack, Jimmy, and Dave Silk. But the Minnesota guys at the beginning, we were kind of wondering who they were and what they were all about because we didn't really know any of them. I only knew Buzzy Schneider. The other guys, I had no idea who they were. I heard they were good players, but didn't know anything about them. But it was amazing how quickly we bonded as a team. And I think that's the sport of ice hockey in general. Anyway, you learn at a young age how important your teammates are, and it's not an individual sport; it's a team sport. And we got along with the Minnesota guys well. We had a lot of fun. Even 43 years later, we still, rag each other about Minnesota and Boston. If Boston University's playing the Gophers in Minnesota and we beat them, I call the Minnesota guys up right away and say, hey, look who won the other night. Or if they beat us, they call me right away. So it was fun playing in that environment with those players. I've said many times over the years, they weren't just great players, they're great people. They were all very successful in what they do today because they had an incredible work ethic and great values and a great commitment. And, whether you were from Minnesota or Massachusetts, it didn't matter at that point because, like I said at the beginning, you put a USA jersey on, you don't put a Boston or a Minnesota shirt on.
Definitely. You guys all made it work, and that just shows what it takes to be a strong team and to eventually get the result you guys wanted, which was a gold medal. So you guys go on the European tour. It was great that Herb Brooks had you guys do that so that you could learn how they play and where you guys stack up going into the Olympics. But you guys played that game at Madison Square Garden against the Soviets before the Olympics, and definitely different result than the one that we're going to talk about. But you guys lost 10-3. Did that shake the confidence at all in the room?
I don't think it did, and I say that because we were never concerned about the Soviets. They were in the other division. Once we got into the Olympic Games, the Soviet that team didn't even exist as far as we were concerned because we were worried about the other games that we had to play. We had to get to the medal round to even possibly play the Soviets. But after we lost that game 10-3, it was a long 6 month. It was a long grinding season. We were nowhere near the team that played them the second time than they were the first time. And I think a lot of it was we stood around and watched the first time we played them in Madison Square Garden. We had heard so much about the Soviets, and Buzzy Schneider and I were the only two guys that had ever played against the Soviets before when we played together in the World Championship. So to us, it was the last game of a 68 grinding season. I think we were happy that the Olympic Games were finally in front of us. The final cuts were already made, so we knew who the 20 players were going to be. So that was a pressure off you that you were dealing with all year, wondering if you were going to make the team still, even though you were part of it at the beginning. So I just think it was just the end of a long grinding tour. And when that game ended and we lost 10-3, it was like, okay, let's go to the Olympics and let's start the season, because that's really when the season began, was when we got to Lake Placid. And again, like I said earlier, that Soviet game was never discussed. When we got to play him again the second time, Herb never brought up, that the first game. It was like it didn't even happen.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of similarities with Coach Belichick. We're on to Cincinnati. We're going to burn the tape. We're moving on, and that game is history. And that's the right mindset you can have. Not thinking about the previous game. We're only looking forward. Yeah, a lot of people talk about winning that game and then advancing to the gold medal game, but it seems like there are also a lot of good teams, at that tournament, because it's the Olympics. But did you guys ever think about, if we want to beat the Soviets at some point, we also have to go through a team like the Czech Republic, who had the Stastny brothers? I know a lot of people my age don't really know who they are, but that Czechoslovakia team, they had some studs on that team too.
Yeah, and again, I will go Bill Belichick on you. It was one game at a time. We opened up before the opening ceremonies against a really good Sweden team. Pelle Lindbergh was their goaltender. They had some great players, for Sweden at the time. And that was the game we had to, win, and we got a great tie. Billy Baker's goal arguably might be the biggest goal of the Olympics. We tie the game 2-2. I think it was 28 seconds left to go in the game. Billy scores. We get a point out of that. Then it was on to Czechoslovakia, a team that people thought could beat the Soviets, the only team that anybody thought had a chance. And, we blow them out of the building, beat them 7-3. And then it was on to Norway. Then it was on to Romania. Then it was on to West Germany. Our goal was to get to the medal round. I've told the story many times. It reminded me of Jimmy Valvano years ago when North Carolina State won the national championship. Nobody thought they could. Somebody asked him what it took, and he said, I wanted to put my team in a position to win. And their goal was to get to the Final Four. And they got to the Final Four, and they won the national championship. And that was Herb's goal for us, was let's get to the Final Four. Let's get to the medal round. Once you get to the medal round, anything can happen. 2 games you got to play. So the mindset going in was get to the medal round. And then once we got to the medal round, it was on to the Soviets. And after we beat the Soviets, it was on to the next game, and it was on to Finland. The Soviet game was over. And, so many years later, people think we only played one game. People forget that, if we don't beat Finland, there was a chance we could have not even won a medal if we don't beat Finland. If we tied, there was a chance we could have won the bronze medal. So you and I aren't having this conversation if we don't beat Finland. Things would have changed drastically. It wouldn't have been the greatest sports moment of the 20th century if we didn't beat Finland. So, to close the deal for me and my teammates was made it that much more special, because we had to win one more game, and we were able to do that.
Yeah, that's the thing about these games, is you got to win all of them, and there's more games to talk about as just opposed to the big one. That's the great thing about sports, is that there's a big journey winning the gold medal. But before you got to the gold medal game, you guys had to beat the Soviet Union, and a lot going on into that game. They're trying to win a 5-peat. Coach Brooks gives you guys such a great speech to get you guys fired up. What's the energy like going into the game against the Soviets?
I think the energy was great. I think we were excited, like you are for any big game. I remember, my Thanksgiving football game against Revere. It was a big game. I've played in big games before, but you can't make the game bigger than it is. You can't get too high, because if you get too high, you're going to run around and make mistakes, and you can't be too low, because if you're not prepared, you're going to get your head handed to you. So you kind of go into that game as you would any big game, prepared and focused, excited, curious, nervous, all the emotions that you get when you play, playing in a big game. But you couldn't lose sight of the fact that you had to continue to do the things and play the way we had been playing throughout the Olympic Games, and don't all of a sudden change things because it's the Soviets, and it's a semifinal game. So again, I think the whole team, we were ready to play. We were, running all the emotions that you normally would in a big game. But again, like I said, you can't get too high. You can't start to think the game's bigger than it is. It's still a hockey game. And I use a crazy analogy a few times in the movie Hoosiers, when they were playing in the championship basketball game. The coach of the team went and measured the net, the hoop from the ground to the top of the net, and he turned to his players and said, "Yep, it's the same distance and same height as it is, back at home." So I think that's kind of the mindset you have to have. You can't make the game bigger than it is. It's a big game, yes, but you got to go in prepared like you would any game.
For sure. And just what a game it was. I know there were so many big moments, but it's just crazy to think that I think there were about 5 goals in a 13-minute stretch between both teams. They get the early goal. You guys tie it up and back and forth, back and forth. Before we get to your goal that won the game, what was that game like? Just how chaotic it was.
Yeah, the good thing is we never got behind by 2 goals. We stayed within a goal, and I think if we got behind by 2 or 3, first of all, if we got behind by 3, the game's over. We're not going to catch that team, up 3 goals. So, every time a play needed to be made, we made it. And I should say Mark Johnson made it. If it wasn't for Mark Johnson, we don't win. Mark scored that goal with 1 second left on the clock at the end of the period. Mark scored the goal to tie the game at 3-3 when we were down 3-2. Jimmy played really well, throughout the game. We were getting better as the game was going on. We came out, struggled a little at the beginning, took some bad penalties in the second period, but basically stayed right with them, right in it. And Magic scored with 10 minutes left to go. Well, no, about 8.5 minutes left to go, maybe 9 minutes. And then I had a chance to, I scored with 10 minutes left to go to give us the lead. So again, it was a back and forth game, but the fact that we never got behind by too many kept us in the game. And as we kept moving along, our confidence was getting better and better. And I've only seen the game twice. I think I saw it about 5 years ago. Somebody was doing a special and wanted me to watch the game. And in the last 10 minutes after I scored, the Soviets only had like 6 shots on goal. I mean, we controlled the last 10 minutes of that hockey game. And in the movie Miracle, it's like, we weren't even out on the ice. It was save Craig, save Craig, save Craig. That wasn't the case. And I'll give you a statistic, which is an amazing statistic. And I didn't know this until about 2 years ago. Robbie McClanahan, one of my teammates, in the third period of the Olympics, we outscored our opponent 17-3. That's an incredible number.
For sure.
Against some of the best teams in the world, that we dominated the third period. So the conditioning, the speed, our youth, we were the youngest team in the Olympics. Matter of fact, our Olympic team in 1980 would be the youngest team in college hockey today. Our average age was only 21 and a half years old, 22 years old. And Buzzy Schneider and I were 25 at the time. So we were the old guys on the hockey team. So I just think, the conditioning, the speed that we had, the youth that we had, was a huge advantage for us. And I think that came to fruition in the third period of all our games, but clearly in the third period of the Soviet game.
Definitely. And I didn't even know that stat. I mean, unbelievable. 17-3. That's insane. And that's something that's definitely should be, talked about more. Like I said, what a statistic. Just, it seems in sports, as time goes on, the games, they're still there, but the moments live on forever. You had the game-winning goal. I sat down a couple weeks actually with David Tyree, who made the famous helmet catch in the Super Bowl, and that's a moment that's going to live on forever, like yours. What's it like knowing that you scored the game-winning goal? And I know hockey's a team sport, but your goal is one of those moments in hockey history forever.
Well, I'm just happy I was able to help out. Everybody did something throughout that game to put us in a position for me to score that goal. Like I said, if it wasn't for Mark Johnson, his 2 goals, who knows what would have happened with my goal. So, and it is, and our team was a team. It wasn't about 1 player or 2 players. It was 20 guys in that locker room that really believed in what we were doing. And obviously, looking back, I'm honored and kind of excited. Yeah, I got the game-winning goal against the Soviets, but you put it into perspective. If the other 3 goals weren't scored, who cares about my goal? So I'm glad I helped out when I had the opportunity to do that. And, we were able to get a victory out of it. But like I said, like I can't stress enough how much it was 20 players. We played four lines constantly. We didn't play one or two lines. We played four lines, shift after shift after shift, and just kept battling and battling. And yes, I got the game-winning goal, but a lot of players did a lot of things in order for us to win that game 4-3.
That's such a great answer. That's one of the things I really enjoy about interviewing hockey players is just how humble you guys are and giving the right answer every single time. So, like you said, in the movie, it does seem like you guys aren't on the ice because they're playing saves for a few minutes. But how stressful was it for you guys leading up to the closing minutes? Just you guys are checking the time, how much time's left, but to be able to just finish it off and know that you won the game.
Yeah, it was a long 10 minutes. I'll tell you that much. You go out on the ice and come back, and it said like 9:58 on the clock, and then you went out and it looked like it was like 8:58. Yet it was only 3 minutes or 4 minutes left in the game. It was just keep going out and doing your job. Herb kept saying on the bench, "Play your game, play your game." We were never concerned about what the Soviets were doing or Finland or any team we played against, actually. We needed to do the things that we needed to do in order to win. And that was to continue playing the way we were playing. So Herb kept stressing that. Play your game, play your game. I help out with our high school hockey team here in Winthrop. And I was telling the players the other day, we would play four lines, and sometimes in 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, we'd play four lines. You would be out in the ice for maybe 30 seconds, 35 seconds max, and then back off the ice and off, and another line would come out on the ice. So it was just continuing to do the things that we were doing throughout the Olympic Games that made us successful. So hence Herb's words of play your game, play your game. That's kind of how it was. Just go out and do what you have to do, and then get off the ice, and the next line, they'll do what they have to do, and continue to do that. And next thing you know, the buzzer sounded, and we win 4-3.
Yeah, you guys got to have a lot of trust in each other for for that to happen. It's a team sport, and greatest moment in sports history and the greatest upset in sports history to beat the Soviets still lives on forever, as we have said. Just what's it like going into the gold medal game against Finland? Just because you guys still had to win the gold medal, and like you said, it wasn't promised that you're going to win a medal. I've seen so many times in sports, in tournaments where the upset happens, like 15 seed goes down in March Madness, and before you know it, the next game, that team that pulled off the upset loses by 40 to Duke or whoever, and you guys still had a job to do to win the gold medal, coming off the greatest upset in sports history and greatest game in hockey history. How did you guys stay focused?
It was easy. This is the championship. This is the game. This is what you prepared for. This is what you worked for. The Soviet game is history. It's over. It's time. We showed up. When we beat the Soviets Friday, we showed up for practice Saturday morning, and Herb put us through one of the hardest practices we had all year. He just skated our butts off that morning, and we're like, you know what? Why is he so pissed off? We just beat the Soviets, and he just had to get that energy out of us. He had to get that excitement out of us. He had to bring us right back down to earth, and make us aware that we did have another game to play. And I said to Herb many times after, Herb, we were ready to play against Finland. You didn't have to skate us that hard that next day. As a matter of fact, after we beat Finland, if there was another game to play, we'd have been ready to play. And that was the type of team that we had. Guys that just loved competing, loved playing, had fun playing. And so the Finland game was that. It was, okay, guys, let's go out and let's play the way we've been playing. Let's embrace it. Let's enjoy it. Let's have fun. And let's go out and play the way that we're capable of playing. And, we're losing 2-1 going into the third period. It was like the fifth time in the Olympics that we were losing. And every time we were trailing, we came back and won. And I think that's a true test of a team. That's a true test of leadership and character. How you respond when your backs are to the wall. When we're winning, everybody's high-fiving and laughing and joking. But when you're behind the eight ball, that's a true test. And it just showed again how good and how resilient our hockey team was. And in my opinion, I've only seen the Finland game once, and that was probably about 40 years ago. We played the best 20 minutes of hockey. I think we played the whole tournament. The whole tournament, the best 20 minutes we played was the final 20 minutes against Finland. And I think that just speaks volumes of how talented our team was and how focused our team was on getting the job finished.
Yeah, unbelievable to win the gold medal. And you hit such a good point that the best teams are the ones that when resiliency is needed, it comes through. You see so many teams in the NHL. I know we're talking Olympics, but they win the President's Trophy and they don't really trail many games all year. they get to the playoffs, it's tight, and they don't really know how to respond. But it shows that you guys were one of those teams that no matter what the situation, you guys were able to pull through and win the game. So just can we talk about how the story lives on today? It was, 1980, but given the fact that it's still inspiring hockey players today, people want to put on the USA jersey any chance they get. Uh, it seems like it's going to be one of those stories that many, many, many years from now, it's going to feel like it's fresh.
Well, I think there are a lot of things that have happened over the years that keep our story out there. I mean, it's not on the tip of people's tongues. Not everybody's talking about it every day. But when they talk sporting events, obviously they'll talk about the '80 Olympic team. But, when Sports Illustrated named it the greatest sports moment of the 20th century, that kind of rekindled our team. The movie Miracle obviously has rekindled our team. If I go to my grandkids' games now and these little kids come up to me because they've seen the movie and they want a picture or they want an autograph or something. Some of these kids, their parents weren't even born in 1980. So it's just nice to know that the story still is kind of out there, because I think it's a great message to people about hard work and determination. I think our team exemplifies, obviously, the clear underdog kind of theme. But I think what we did and what we accomplished, the joy that we brought to so many people for whatever reason it might be, whether it was from a hockey standpoint or from a political standpoint, I've said many times we could use a 1980 today, something to kind of bring this country together. That's what took place, in 1980. So the story kind of still lives in some areas and some parts of the country, but young kids know the story. For a few years, my grandkids would skate down in Winthrop at the Mike Eruzione Center. And up until 2 years ago, they didn't know who Mike Eruzione was. I'm Papa. And now they figured it out. And they realize what that moment meant. And some of their friends come up and say, is that really your Papa? So it's kind of fun. I think, like I said, I think earlier, our team has embraced it. We've enjoyed it. I know life has moved on for everybody. I'm still fortunate that I get an opportunity to kind of relive it with, a variety of things that I do. But it's still a special part of American history and American sports. And, as we're talking here, I did an interview this morning. A girl in high school was doing a report in the class, and they were all picking a moment. And then the students were going to vote, what's the greatest sports moment? And she said, right now, it's the finalization of the top 10. And we are going up against Villanova. And the '80 Olympic team is going up against Villanova in their buzzer beating national championship game. And I texted her back. I said, that's just a college game. I said, if we lose to Villanova, your classmates need to have a serious discussion about sports history. But yeah, like I said, it was just something that we were honored and proud to have been a part of, and to have the story talked about, 40 some odd years left, 43 years later is still pretty special.
Definitely. And Mike, as a Providence alum, I'll try and make sure that Villanova moment doesn't win. As a rival, I'll do my best.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, it's amazing just because I think what, for people my age, what kept it going, the story is just, you see so many great USA hockey moments today, like the gold medal game against Canada where Crosby scored, but it was just such a great game. Or USA winning World Juniors a couple years ago, upsetting Canada. After those two great games, I remember my dad saying, you should have seen the 1980 game. And I think that's what draws people's interest. And it's so great for that to happen. So that leads into my last question. It's just, what's it like for you seeing, great USA hockey moments from afar, whether it's the Olympics or, World Juniors or U17s, U18s, because
Yeah.
those great moments are still happening.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. I'm waiting. I'm crossing my fingers. I hope in my lifetime we win another gold medal. We deserve one. We're talented. We're good. We go into tournaments now as one of the favorites. I think in 1980 we might have opened the door, not only for Americans, but I think for even the college hockey. People never, the National Hockey League never looked at college players as a group of players that could play at the next level. Clearly, I think we opened the eyes and opened the door, but today's players have knocked the door down. You look at the skill level. You look at an Austin Matthews. You look at the college level, some of the great college players we have now. But like I said, the NHL players, the Charlie McAvoys, the Jack Eichels, and I'll use my two BU guys in that example. But we've got so many great Americans, and they're coming from all parts of the country now. Before you were from Boston or Massachusetts or Minnesota. Now, great players coming out of Rhode Island, great players coming out of Texas, Arizona, California, Florida. You never saw that before. So the game is growing, not only from the men's standpoint, but the women's standpoint. You watch our women play today. They are so good, so much better than they were 10 years ago. Our men are better than they were 10 years ago. The skill level is off the charts. So we're going to win that gold medal somewhere. Maybe coming up at the World Juniors. We got a great team that we're sending over to Sweden. So I get excited when I watch our Olympic athletes compete. In all sports, you put the USA jersey on, it's pretty special, like I told you. And I'm waiting for that. That gold medal's coming, and maybe it's going to be at the next Winter Games in Italy. But we're too talented of a nation in the sport of ice hockey not to get another one, because the skill level and the talent is as good as any place in the world.
Yeah, 100% agree. Just because we came really close, against the Canadians in the Olympics a decade and a half ago. But I think I don't know if you've seen these, but the roster projections, if the NHL players do play the next Olympics, that USA roster is just as talented as the Canadian roster, and I think we can break through. Hopefully, they play. I mean, it's what a roster if you haven't seen it, but.
Yeah, no, it drives me nuts that the pros aren't in the Olympic Games. Every sport we have, the pros go and play. You see the soccer players, you see our basketball players, our, the Ryder Cup, and anything you want to see, the best players compete. And people always said, should go back to the old days. Well, those days are over, where the U.S. is going to send a college team over and compete against the European professionals. We have great professional players. The best players in the world, I think, should play and see who's going to win. So I hope, like I said, in my lifetime, we get that gold medal. That way people won't call me anymore. They can talk to the new players.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, hopefully the growth of the game in places in the states you mentioned, Arizona is definitely becoming a hot spot with guys like Austin Matthews and Matthew Nyes are tearing it up in Toronto, and hopefully that can inspire kids in Arizona to play the game of hockey and other states as well. Mike, thank you so much. This was awesome. What a great episode, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you very much, and say hi to Mr. Burton for me.
We'll do.
All right, you got it. Take care.